This right here is Isaiah Genese's entire aesthetic. Let me tell you right now. The armchair and the hot beverage in one hand. This is everything I'm gonna do after I retire. For like 30 years, I'm just sit right here. Who is Isaiah Genece? I don't know. I am all about love. I'm all about hip hop. I'm all about chocolate. I'm all about the things that are important to me. You know what I mean? Those are the real basic stuff that's important to me: hip hop, chocolate, humor, science. But like, I guess me as a person, like, who am I? My main objective is to spread love. It's the thing I like to think that I do well and always try to do better. But that's like sort of the general deep docu-series answer. More specifically, yeah, I mean, I love hip hop, more important to me than most things. I love chocolate, more important to me than most things. And I'm gonna change the world with engineering. That's the plan. I'm doing my senior project, so I'm focusing on trying to improve the current state of the market of mechatronics education and teach robotics and mechanical systems in a new way, which has been a really enlightening and special experience because I've never been able to have a project where I'm seeing it through from start to finish. And then I have my personal projects. Joined a music group by the name of Sister Insider. I've been doing a lot of writing with them, which is the main thing I wanted to do when I came back from my last year, was do more writing, do more hip hop stuff that was focused on me, develop my craft, develop my work, because that's something that I never find time to do here, and something that I explicitly wanted to come into Yale and spend more time doing. And so now I finally have crafted out a part of my schedule with which to do that. Yeah, still involved with the Fifth Humor, still making people laugh and people making me laugh, and I put a lot of value on that. Another creative outlet that I have. Freshman counselor, so it's a full cup, but it's a cup I'm happy with. Why do I love hip hop? Oh man. Hip hop started with my father. My music taste was very much defined by the radio for a while. And the exception to the rule was my father. He would drive me to school most days because the bus came really, really early. And he would always, he won't drive unless his iPod is in the car. So there have been times where we couldn't leave the house because he had to run back inside to get his iPod. No matter how long the trip is, he could be going to 7-Eleven, which is a 5-minute drive, and he would need that iPod. And so I'd always be hearing his music, which had been a lot of Earth, Wind & Fire. He loves Earth, Wind & Fire. But big Tupac fan as well. First man I ever met who has no problems being both a Tupac and a Biggie fan. But you know, that he was. And he played a lot of that. He had Common. And these are the kind of things that I would hear in the background, right? These are the kind of things that I would experience outside of myself and not really recognize the change they were having in me at the time. And the more I grew into it was like throughout middle and high school, when I started to cling to hip hop as a proponent of my blackness. I tried to cling to hip hop as this thing that I had that made me black. Because, you know, growing up in this extremely white private school, not really having a community that was close to my own experience, and experiencing a lot of that, you know, you're not really black because of X, Y, and Z reasons. especially because it was a big basketball school and tennis was my sport. But just little things like that where I felt like I needed things to cling on to remain black. And hip hop was one of those things. Which makes it seem like a less genuine love from the beginning, right? But it's the kind of thing where it starts as one thing and then develops into a very real relationship after the fact. I moved into Detroit because I'm working for Ford Motor Company when I graduate. I guess I should develop that with a story. So I did an internship with them last summer working in electrified powertrain engineering. And the short answer is that I was working with the start-stop system, which is a system on some F-150s, hybrids, that cuts off the engine automatically when it's idle to improve fuel economy, reduce emissions, that kind of thing. And I was an intern, so I didn't do a whole lot. I, attended a lot of the project activity meetings and got updated on how things were going with the project as a whole. That's the thing about corporate engineering is that a lot of the science can get weighed down by corporate structure. So when it comes to like organizing meetings to update people about cost and having to, set up calls for this and that and the other thing, the amount of science I found myself using was less than I expected. Until I got set up with one of my mentors, Eric DeHessel, who put me on with my personal project, which was developing testing simulations for the start-stop system. I was able to detect things like seat track with this simulation, and that was all me. My supervisor gave me this assignment, said go do this thing, but then sort of let me rock. He was there for questions, but I really spearheaded the meetings. I was able to set up, conference calls with people in different departments and make this project my own, which was really, really special to me. Automotive industry is not where my heart lies, but I have something right now. I have a prospect. I'm very excited about that. I'm excited to see what I can turn that into. Space, ideally. Space is terrifying, but there's a lot going on that I want to be part of. We'll see what happens. And Detroit is just lit. I love Detroit, and I'm looking forward to really experiencing more of it. And also just living on my own, being my own person, developing myself, having a real job as a real person. It's wild. It's a wild thing to think about. This point in my life, I'm in a very confident place. I'm very comfortable with myself. I have learned a lot about myself through taking risks. I developed a lot about myself as a person. This past summer, working for Ford was instrumental to that. Being on my own for a little bit, forging my own identity in the workplace and also as my own person, more so than they treat students here. They treat interns like adults at the company. And they'll try and get to know you from a student perspective, but what do they have? They got kids and they have a job and they're just doing real things. So they treat you as such. And so I was able to really trust myself more to put myself in uncomfortable and strange and new situations and be just fine. And that created a lot of confidence, a lot of comfort. That's all I've learned from taking risks, It took me a while to get here. I think all throughout middle and high school, because of this environment I came up in, I was unsure what comfort with myself really felt like. I was unsure how to just be me and be cool with that. Especially because there was a lot of nuances, a lot of different sides to that in this toxic environment that is high school. And so that honestly didn't start until I came here physically to Yale University, where I was able to detach myself from this environment where my identity was being impacted by all these outside things that had nothing to do with me. And I was able to, by coming here, seek out my own communities and therefore forge something in myself. And that's still an ongoing process. There's a lot of stuff about me that I'm still not entirely comfortable with. Everybody has their insecurities or whatever. But my whole thing as a person is, slowly chipping away at each of those insecurities, bit by bit. And I think every time I get a little bit closer, nobody's gonna be, I'm not gonna get to a point where I feel like everything is great and, nothing could possibly be wrong, because that's just not realistic. But if it takes, I love that. The idea that that's a lifelong task that I have is to continue improving myself and continue chipping away at my insecurities and my shortcomings as I see them. So that's how I got here, taking risks, doing things that scare me, whether, you know, with my, that's the thing, either like I've done them myself or people have like forced me to do them, you know what I'm saying, like against my will, and I want, you know, I have a lot of friends who, not even a lot of friends, I have a couple people who are very intent about pushing me out of my comfort zone, and that's really, really important to me, and I never would have gotten here without those few people. And it's wild because you look back on yourself before you did something that scared you, and then you look at where you are now, and it's amazing how far you've come. One of the things in my cup was chocolate, if I describe that correctly, but I'm not going to take the cop-out answer. That's an interesting question. My mind's going to go back to hip hop, and I'm sorry about that, because that's everything. I don't know. That's always what it does. But if hip hop were chocolate, hip hop is sweet, but the tiniest bit bitter. Hip hop is a darker chocolate, because you know how dark chocolate is just a little bit bitter, but some people like it like that. Hip hop could be crunchy. I don't see why not. It's got that rugged, aggressive feel to it sometimes. But once you've really tasted it, you're not gonna stop. Because it's the kind of thing that may not be good for you nutritionally, but you eat it because it nourishes your soul, you know what I mean? Like, that's the logic I always use when I eat 5 or 6 Kit Kats at a time. I'm nourishing my soul. And like, that's the only thing I can think about, is how it's a rich flavor. It's a very rich flavor. There's a lot going on. Some people say that might be perfect. I eat a lot of chocolate, and so some people be like, that's too much chocolate, and I don't know what that means. Hip hop is like too much chocolate. When I think of things that are too much chocolate, I think of like, or that have described to me as too much chocolate. So for example, at Costco, they have an all-American chocolate cake, which is 6 layers. So it's cake, and then some frosting, and then cake, and then some frosting, and then cake. And of course on top, you have your frosting, and around the outside are chocolate shavings. It's one of the most ridiculous things that I've ever eaten in my life. And every time people get like little slivers of it, because they're like, it's so rich, it's too much chocolate, and I eat chunks of that. Hip hop is like a Costco all-American 6-layer chocolate cake. Yes, indeed.